Age of Wonders 4 is about to drop its 12th DLC, so if you're a Warhammer 3 player who's still unsure of if this game is for you, then here's 10 reasons why it might be. First up, faction variety. Immortal Empires has a lot of legendary lords to choose from, and Age of Wonders 4 is no different. There is a massive range of pre-made factions to choose from, ranging from your bog-standard humans focused on law and order, to a nomadic band of bunny rabbits dead set on raiding everything in sight. There really are so many to choose from, each with their own playstyle, theming, objectives, and more, so there's plenty to keep you busy for hours. And if you somehow manage to run out, you can even create your very own custom factions to take into your campaigns. This allows you to choose every single thing, including their physical form, their culture, society traits, and more. It sounds like a lot, and that's because it is, but it all adds up to a system that allows you to create essentially anything you want. There are very few limits in what you can create, so the choice really is up to you and what kind of faction you want to play as. Maybe you want to create your custom faction of vampiric wolf people, or perhaps you'd like to lead a group of peace and diplomacy-loving Elysians led by a dragon. And if you're struggling for inspiration, no one is stopping you from copying others' homework. You can pretty easily make versions of factions from Warhammer 3 or any other games you like. The world really is your oyster, and the options are near infinite. Speaking of your faction, as the game goes on, it will change and develop based on how you play and the choices you make. And I don't mean how, like in Warhammer 3, you have stronger units and powerful cities. No, we're talking your faction, including the populace, can look completely different at the end from how they do at the beginning. Without getting too much into the weeds of things, as you play, you'll progress through various tomes of research. Within these, you will discover spells that allow you to customize your race and units in a massive number of ways. Maybe they will cause your units to deal a little more damage, be better scouts, or heal faster on the campaign map. Each one of these enchantments brings with it both statistical and physical changes to your faction, meaning the more you add on as the game progresses, the less recognizable your faction becomes. It's a neat effect that really makes you feel like your people are evolving, and makes the choices you make in each campaign feel ever more impactful. Alongside all of these factions for you to choose from and all the ways you can customize as the game goes on, there's also a huge number of campaigns to choose from in the form of realms. You can choose a story realm to progress through a narrative over the course of your game and even unlock further realms upon completion. Or you can choose to go for a challenge realm to really test yourself in more of a sandbox setup with less of a focus on the story. Challenge realms can also be customized with all kinds of traits that affect everything from the NPC enemies you will find to the layout of the map and even victory conditions. If you really want to set everything to be just the way you like, you can also create entirely new custom realms. This allows you to customize every single detail from the layout of the world to features to size to player count to everything else you could imagine. I really cannot stress enough just how much detail there is for you to choose from. It gives the game a near unlimited amount of replay value to keep you entertained for a very long time. Now, I did just touch on this one, but I think one thing we can all agree that Warhammer 3 lacks is story. We have this rich world full of all of these factions and races, and almost every single one of them has decades of lore behind them, and we see basically none of it. I've loved the vampire counts for a decade, and I still don't know how Vlad won over Isabella instead of me, and I never will know, no matter how many times Fred and Monsters tried to teach me. Campaigns in Warhammer 3, with the exception of the prologue, lack any real narrative, and instead opt to let you simply do whatever you want. This freedom can of course allow you to play how you see fit and set your own goals, but it also makes every campaign feel a little bit samey. Like the direction we usually get is a victory condition telling us to beat a couple of factions, then collect settlements until you are done. It is very bare bones, but Age of Wonders doesn't make the same mistakes. Each of the story realms comes with their own main narratives for you to follow as you progress through the campaign. Alongside the main story, each little side quest creates their own smaller scale stories that may not have the same level of depth, but it all comes together to make the world feel a lot more alive. The best part is, if you really don't care, you can just skip past everything anyway, so it's hardly in the way if you just want to play. It's a great option and fleshes out the world well for players that want it. Warhammer 3 tends to feel like two games stitched together. You have the campaign gameplay where you manage your economy, recruit units and move around the map, and you have the real-time battles where you try to take down enemies and capture settlements. The two never really come together as one outside of the units you are using, along with who and where you are battling. However, in Age of Wonders 4, campaign and battle feed into each other in a much more direct way. For starters, you can move armies around to make a more powerful force in combat, and the position they are on the campaign map directly relates to their starting positions in combat. Spells are also extremely impactful both on the campaign and battle map. Those enhancements I mentioned earlier can drastically change how your units perform in combat, changing the ways they deal damage and the types of damage they can deal, and even the units you can use. Combat spells allow you to give yourself an advantage, and the amount of mana at your disposal is directly linked to how much you have in the campaign. Both aspects of the game flow into each other in this very satisfying way that helps it feel like one seamless experience. There are loading screens between combat and campaign, but they are very fast and help keep you immersed in exactly what's going on. Now, this next reason is straight from my good friend slash podcast colleague slash father figure, Monsters Abound. With a little under 300 hours in game, his favourite thing is the pure freedom you have to play the game exactly how you like. Whilst Wonders 4 is undoubtedly a strategy game, it's also a fantasy sandbox that's just as much a role-playing game as it is grand strategy. Where Total War is focused on, well, war, Wonders 4 allows you to play exactly how you want. You can focus on war and take out all other leaders to claim victory, or you can be a peace-loving diplomat and instead use armies to protect your allies and take out naturally occurring threats. You can run around the map doing whatever you like, and the game rewards you whichever path you take. It makes for a very relaxing experience where you never feel too much pressure to do anything and can instead make interesting long-term plans and goals to keep things fresh. Warhammer 3 can quickly get to the point where the scale of your empire and even your armies can be too much to manage. Once you have 5 full provinces, it becomes a bit of a chore to keep an eye on all of them, and fighting with anything more than a single full stack turns into an exercise into how much you can abuse the pause button. Wonders 4 instead keeps things on a much smaller scale, but in no way are the stakes any lower. You have far less settlements with only a handful of cities in any given game, but each one becomes far more important because of how few you own. They have a lot more impact on your game, and the way you choose to build each one is a lot more impactful on your campaign. Over in combat, you have small armies with only 6 units in total, but this causes battles to be a lot more tense, as losing even a single unit means losing a large percentage of your army's power. It makes every unit feel a lot more important, and I'm a lot more tempted to retry combat to keep everyone alive, rather than just eating the losses and recruiting them later. It's certainly a different experience and a bit of an adjustment getting used to something so much smaller scale, but it can make for a breath of fresh air and helps keep things feeling important. Completing a campaign in Wonders 4 doesn't just send you back to the main menu. I already mentioned the story realms with multiple chapters that unlock as you complete each one, but alongside this we also have meta progression in the form of the Pantheon. This houses a massive number of upgrades you can unlock for every subsequent campaign, and these range from simple cosmetics to entirely new items and even realms. There's over 200 items to unlock, so there really is a lot to keep you busy for a very long time if you want to collect everything. These change not just how future factions can look, but also how your campaign plays. It is a great system that rewards you for seeing campaigns through to the end and makes completing a campaign feel like another step in the journey rather than the end. It's little things, but they add up to make it feel very compelling. A real quick one here because the numbers really speak for themselves. Warhammer 3 has pretty long turn timers that only get worse as the game goes on. On a longer campaign, you can be looking at over a minute of turn timer between you getting to play. Added up over the course of a full session, and you can be spending 10, 15, even 20 minutes sat staring at basically nothing. Wonders 4 turn times, however, are very, very fast, especially early on. Granted, even on the largest map there are a lot fewer factions, but still, the turn timers are speedy. You can blaze through turns in no time, allowing you to jump straight into a campaign and get to the more interesting mid-game a lot faster. They're so fast that I was struggling to write notes whilst playing, since my turn would be up before I could even find a place in the script. I'll throw up some comparisons on the largest map possible to keep things fair, but the bottom line is they are faster and let you spend a lot more of your time playing the game, which is kind of the point anyway. Now, I'm not trying to make this video to crap on Warhammer 3 because at the end of the day, these are two extremely different and excellent games in their own right. However, I think we can all agree that some mechanics in Warhammer 3 are a little bit basic. If it's not something unique to a specific faction, then chances are it's going to be extremely bare bones, and even then it can be a coin flip. Mechanics like diplomacy, declaring wars and resources are almost ignored or at the very least forgotten about. If you think I'm exaggerating, I want you to let me know the last time you really thought about what resources you owned, because I can almost guarantee it was never, unless you're playing as a faction that uses crafting, but I digress. In Wonders 4, you may not have the same level of mechanical depth between factions, but every base mechanic has enough depth that it doesn't really matter. Diplomacy and war declarations are a lot deeper and usually require more thought than blind conquest. Alliances in their various tiers are a lot more tempting and worthwhile, since the AI can actually come to your aid should the need arise. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but at the very least there is some depth, and personally, I think it's a lot more fun. Resources are now an incredibly important aspect of your campaign, granting you all kinds of effects across every aspect of the game. Research has a lot more impact, changing what spells and units you have access to. Most mechanics are shared, but they carry so much depth that even if every campaign was the exact same, they would still feel engaging because the decisions are always important. Are some areas simpler? Absolutely. But on the whole, you are getting a very feature-rich experience. And if you want to know where to get started in Age of Wonders 4, check out my complete beginner's guide from a few years back.